The dawn of exploration. The age of exploration, a pivotal chapter in human history, unfolded between the 15th and 17th centuries, a time when European nations embarked on audacious voyages into the unknown. This era of unprecedented geographic and cultural expansion was marked by a complex interplay of economic, political, and religious motivations. The consequences of these voyages would be far-reaching, transforming the global landscape, reshaping economies, and altering the course of human civilization. For centuries, Europe had been largely confined to its own borders, its knowledge of the world beyond limited to the Mediterranean and the Atlantic coasts. The Middle Ages, while marked by significant intellectual and cultural developments, had not fostered a widespread spirit of exploration. However, the seeds of change were being sown. The Crusades, although primarily military endeavors, had exposed Europeans to the wealth and sophistication of the East, stimulating a desire for contact with these distant lands. The Renaissance, a period of cultural and intellectual rebirth, also played a crucial role in creating the conditions for exploration. This era witnessed a renewed interest in classical learning, a spirit of inquiry, and a growing curiosity about the natural world. Humanists, scholars who focused on classical studies, emphasized the importance of knowledge and exploration. Their work helped to erode the medieval worldview and pave the way for a more open-minded and adventurous approach to the world. Technological advancements were equally essential to the rise of exploration. The development of more seaworthy ships, such as the Caravel, with its triangular sails and shallow draft, made long-distance voyages possible. The invention of navigational instruments, including the compass and astrolabe, provided explorers with the tools they needed to determine direction and celestial positions. These technological breakthroughs, combined with the growing expertise of European sailors, created the conditions for extended maritime expeditions. Economic factors were a primary driver of exploration. The desire for wealth and trade was a powerful motivator for European monarchs and merchants. For centuries, Europe had been dependent on luxury goods from the East, such as spices, silk, and porcelain. These valuable commodities were transported overland through the Middle East, controlled by Arab and Muslim traders. The Ottoman Empire's dominance over these trade routes led to exorbitant prices and limited supply, stimulating a search for alternative routes to Asia. Mercantilism, an economic theory that emphasized the accumulation of wealth through trade and colonization, further fueled the drive for exploration. Nations sought to establish trade monopolies, acquire colonies rich in resources, and maintain a favorable balance of trade. The promise of untold riches, including gold, silver, and other precious metals, lured European monarchs and merchants alike. Explorers were seen as pioneers of economic expansion, their discoveries promising to enrich the mother country and enhance its global standing. Religious fervor also played a significant role in the motivations behind European exploration. The Catholic Church, a powerful institution during this period, sought to spread Christianity to new lands and convert indigenous populations. The Reconquista, the centuries-long Christian campaign to expel the Moors from the Iberian Peninsula, had instilled a sense of religious zeal and a desire to spread the faith. Many explorers and their sponsors were motivated by a missionary spirit, believing they were fulfilling a divine calling. The Protestant Reformation, which began in the early 16th century, introduced a new dimension to religious competition. Protestant nations, eager to challenge the Catholic Church's dominance, sought to establish their own colonies and spread their religious beliefs. This rivalry intensified the drive for overseas expansion and added a new layer of complexity to the motivations behind exploration. In addition to economic and religious factors, the spirit of adventure and the pursuit of personal glory played a crucial role. The unknown beckoned with the promise of fame, fortune, and the opportunity to make history. Explorers were often driven by a thirst for knowledge and a desire to expand the boundaries of human understanding. The Renaissance spirit of curiosity and exploration fueled a desire to discover new lands, peoples, and natural wonders. The interplay of these factors created a dynamic and competitive environment among European nations. Portugal, Spain, England, France, and the Netherlands emerged as leading maritime powers, each vying for supremacy in the race for exploration and colonization. The quest for new trade routes, the desire to spread Christianity, the pursuit of wealth and power, and the spirit of adventure combined to propel these nations into the unknown. The Age of Exploration was a period of both remarkable achievement and profound human cost. While it led to the expansion of European influence and the creation of a globalized world, it also brought about the exploitation of indigenous peoples, the destruction of cultures, and the devastating impact of diseases. Understanding the complexities of this era is essential to appreciating its enduring legacy and the challenges it poses for contemporary society. Defining European exploration and its historical significance. The Age of Exploration, a pivotal chapter in human history, unfolded between the 15th and 17th centuries, a time when European nations embarked on audacious voyages into the unknown. This era of unprecedented geographic and cultural expansion was marked by a complex interplay of economic, political, and religious motivations. The consequences of these voyages would be far-reaching, transforming the global landscape, reshaping economies, and altering the course of human civilization. European exploration refers to the period when European powers, primarily Portugal, Spain, England, France, and the Netherlands, ventured into the unknown waters of the Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific Oceans. These explorers sought new trade routes, sought to expand their empires, and spread their religion. Their journeys led to the discovery of new lands, the establishment of colonies, and the development of global trade networks. The significance of the Age of Exploration cannot be overstated. It marked a turning point in human history, transforming our understanding of the world and laying the foundation for the interconnected global society we inhabit today. The voyages of discovery not only expanded geographical knowledge, but also initiated a profound process of cultural exchange and diffusion. One of the most immediate impacts of European exploration was the Columbian Exchange, a vast network of biological and cultural diffusion between the Old World and the New World. The transfer of plants, animals, diseases, and people across the Atlantic Ocean had profound consequences for both hemispheres. European crops like wheat, barley, and rice were introduced to the Americas, while indigenous crops such as corn, potatoes, and tomatoes were brought to Europe. This exchange transformed agricultural practices and diets worldwide. However, the Columbian Exchange was not without its devastating consequences. The introduction of European diseases, such as smallpox, measles, and influenza, to which indigenous populations had no immunity, led to catastrophic epidemics. Entire civilizations were decimated, and the demographic balance of power shifted dramatically. Beyond the biological exchange, the Age of Exploration also facilitated the transfer of ideas, technologies, and cultural practices. European explorers brought back knowledge of new plants, animals, and medicinal herbs, enriching the scientific understanding of the world. The encounter with diverse cultures challenged European worldviews and spurred intellectual curiosity. The exploration era also marked the rise of European empires. Spain and Portugal, the early pioneers, established vast colonial empires in the Americas, Africa, and Asia. These empires were built on a foundation of military conquest, economic exploitation, and cultural domination. While the exploitation of indigenous peoples and the enslavement of Africans were dark chapters in this history, the establishment of these empires also led to the transfer of European languages, religions, and legal systems to new territories. Economically, the Age of Exploration had a profound impact on global trade. The discovery of new trade routes to Asia and the Americas led to the emergence of a global economy. European powers competed for control of trade networks, establishing colonies and trading posts around the world. The demand for luxury goods from Asia, such as spices, silk, and porcelain, fueled the growth of maritime trade and the development of commercial empires. The exploration of new lands also led to significant advancements in cartography, navigation, and shipbuilding. The creation of more accurate maps and the development of new navigational instruments enabled explorers to undertake increasingly ambitious voyages. The exchange of knowledge and expertise between different cultures contributed to the refinement of maritime technology. In conclusion, the Age of Exploration was a transformative period that reshaped the world order. It connected distant continents, facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, and people, and laid the foundation for the globalized world we live in today. While the era was marked by both remarkable achievements and tragic consequences, its impact on human history is undeniable. The Age of Exploration, spanning roughly from the 15th to the 17th century, marked a pivotal era in history as European nations embarked on ambitious voyages across uncharted territories. These expeditions were driven by a blend of motivations, chiefly trade, wealth, and religion, which often intertwine to shape the course of global history. The desire to find new trade routes to the lucrative markets in the East, bypassing the monopolistic control of the Ottoman Empire, was a primary catalyst. Simultaneously, the allure of untapped wealth, the promise of economic prosperity, and the fervor to spread Christianity were instrumental in propelling European explorers and their sponsors into the unknown. This exploration era not only reshaped global trade, but also initiated profound cultural and religious exchanges. The pursuit of new trade routes. One of the most compelling motivations for European exploration was the quest to discover new trade routes to the East. During the 15th century, the traditional overland routes to Asia, particularly those leading to the rich markets of India and China, were dominated by the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans controlled key choke points, such as the Silk Road and the spice routes, which allowed them to impose heavy taxes and monopolistic control over the trade of valuable commodities like spices, silk, and precious metals. European nations, particularly Portugal and Spain, sought to circumvent these overland routes by finding direct sea passages to Asia. This pursuit was driven by the enormous economic potential of accessing the wealth of the East directly, without the interference and expense of middlemen. Spices, in particular, were highly coveted in Europe for their ability to preserve food, enhance flavor, and serve as medicines. The high demand and limited supply of these spices made them extremely valuable, often worth more than their weight in gold. Portugal's maritime pioneering. Portugal, under the leadership of Prince Henry the Navigator, spearheaded the early efforts to find a sea route to Asia. Prince Henry established a school of navigation at Sagres, where he brought together the best maritime minds of the time to advance the art of navigation, shipbuilding, and cartography. Portuguese explorers, such as Bartolomé Dias and Vasco da Gama, played pivotal roles in these efforts. In 1488, Bartolomé Dias successfully rounded the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa, demonstrating the feasibility of reaching the Indian Ocean by sea. A decade later, in 1498, Vasco da Gama's historic voyage to India via the Cape of Good Hope confirmed the potential for a direct maritime route to the lucrative markets of the East. Spain's Western ambitions. Inspired by Portugal's success and driven by the competitive spirit of the age, Spain sought its own route to the East. Christopher Columbus, an Italian navigator, convinced the Spanish monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella, to sponsor his bold proposal to reach Asia by sailing westward across the Atlantic. In 1492, Columbus's voyage led to the discovery of the New World, opening up entirely new territories for exploration and exploitation. Although Columbus did not reach Asia, his voyages revealed the existence of vast lands and resources that would soon attract further European interest and colonization. The allure of untapped wealth. The promise of untapped wealth was another powerful motivator for European exploration. The discovery of the Americas by Columbus and subsequent explorers unveiled vast new territories rich in natural resources. The potential for acquiring precious metals, such as gold and silver, as well as other valuable commodities like sugar, tobacco, and furs, drove European powers to establish colonies and expand their influence across the globe. Spanish conquests and exploitation. Spain, in particular, capitalized on the newfound wealth of the Americas. The conquests of Hernán Cortés in Mexico and Francisco Pizarro in Peru brought vast amounts of gold and silver into Spanish coffers. The establishment of mining operations, such as the famed silver mines of Potosí in present-day Bolivia, provided Spain with a steady stream of wealth that fueled its ambitions in Europe and beyond. The influx of precious metals not only enriched the Spanish crown but also had significant economic repercussions across Europe, contributing to inflation and the rise of a more integrated global economy. Portugal's Eastern fortunes. Portugal, meanwhile, focused on the wealth of the East. The establishment of trading posts and colonies along the coasts of Africa, India, and Southeast Asia allowed Portugal to dominate the spice trade. The Portuguese controlled key ports, such as Goa in India and Malacca in Southeast Asia, securing a monopoly over the flow of spices and other valuable goods into Europe. This wealth enabled Portugal to build a powerful maritime empire and assert its influence on a global scale. The British and Dutch ventures. The British and Dutch were also driven by the pursuit of wealth. The English East India Company and the Dutch East India Company were established to exploit the riches of Asia. These companies, backed by powerful navies and state support, established trading posts, engaged in conflicts with local rulers and rival European powers, and monopolized trade in spices, textiles, and other valuable commodities. The success of these ventures brought immense wealth to England and the Netherlands, transforming them into major global powers. Religious motivations and missionary efforts. Religion played a pivotal role in motivating European exploration and colonization. The fervor of the Christian faith and the desire to spread Christianity to new lands were central to the ambitions of European explorers and settlers. The Reconquista, the Christian reconquest of the Iberian Peninsula from the Moors, had instilled a sense of religious mission in Spain and Portugal. This fervor extended beyond Europe as these nations sought to convert indigenous populations to Christianity. Spain and Portugal's religious zeal. Spain and Portugal, both staunchly Catholic nations, saw the spread of Christianity as a divine mandate. The papal bulls of the late 15th century, particularly the Intercetera issued by Pope Alexander VI, granted these nations the right to conquer and evangelize newly discovered lands. Missionary efforts were integral to Spanish and Portuguese colonization. The establishment of missions and the conversion of indigenous peoples were seen as essential components of their colonial enterprises. In the Americas, Spanish missionaries, such as the Franciscans, Dominicans, and Jesuits, played crucial roles in the evangelization of indigenous populations. They established missions, schools, and churches, seeking to convert and educate the native peoples. While these efforts often led to significant cultural exchanges and the spread of Christianity, they also resulted in the suppression of indigenous religions and customs, leading to complex and often contentious interactions between Europeans and native populations. The role of the Church. The Catholic Church played a central role in supporting and legitimizing European exploration. Religious orders provided the manpower and resources for missionary work, while the Church's endorsement lent moral authority to the colonizing efforts. The Treaty of Tordesillas, brokered by the Pope in 1494, divided the newly discovered lands between Spain and Portugal, further emphasizing the Church's influence in guiding European expansion. Protestant nations and religious motivations. While the Catholic nations of Spain and Portugal were motivated by a desire to spread Catholicism, Protestant nations, such as England and the Netherlands, were also driven by religious motivations. The Protestant Reformation, which began in the early 16th century, fueled a sense of religious competition and zeal. Protestant explorers and settlers sought to establish colonies where they could practice their faith freely and spread their religious beliefs. The Puritans, for example, established colonies in North America with the goal of creating a city upon a hill that would serve as a model of Christian piety and governance. Similarly, the Dutch established colonies in the East Indies and the Americas, where they promoted Protestantism and sought to challenge Catholic dominance. Interconnected motivations and their impact. The motivations driving European nations to explore new lands were multifaceted and deeply intertwined. The pursuit of new trade routes, the allure of untapped wealth, and the fervor of religious mission all played crucial roles in shaping the course of European exploration and colonization. These motivations were not mutually exclusive, but often reinforced each other, creating a powerful impetus for European expansion. Economic and political impacts. The quest for trade and wealth had significant economic and political impacts. The establishment of new trade routes and the discovery of new territories transformed global trade networks. European nations, particularly Spain and Portugal, amassed immense wealth, which they used to finance their political and military ambitions. This wealth also contributed to the rise of mercantilism, a new economic system that emphasized the accumulation of wealth and the establishment of colonies to serve the economic interests of the mother country. The competition for wealth and trade also led to conflicts between European powers. The struggle for control over valuable territories and trade routes resulted in numerous wars and rivalries, such as the Anglo-Spanish War and the Dutch-Portuguese War. These conflicts shaped the geopolitical landscape of the early modern period and had lasting effects on the relationships between European nations. Cultural and religious impacts. The religious motivations driving European exploration had profound cultural and religious impacts. The spread of Christianity through missionary efforts led to significant cultural exchanges and the establishment of new religious communities in the Americas, Africa, and Asia. However, these efforts also resulted in the suppression of indigenous religions and cultures, leading to complex and often contentious interactions between Europeans and native populations. The introduction of European religious beliefs and practices had lasting effects on the cultures and societies of the colonized regions. In many cases, indigenous peoples adopted and adapted Christian beliefs, creating syncretic religious practices that blended elements of Christianity with their traditional beliefs. This process of cultural exchange and adaptation highlights the complex and multifaceted nature of the interactions between Europeans and indigenous peoples. Conclusion. The motivations driving European nations to explore new lands were multifaceted and deeply intertwined, encompassing the pursuit of new trade routes, the allure of untapped wealth, and the fervor of religious mission. These motivations played crucial roles in shaping the course of European exploration and colonization, transforming global trade networks, reshaping geopolitical relationships, and Christopher Columbus, an Italian explorer sponsored by Spain, is often credited with opening the door to European exploration of the Americas. His historic voyage in 1492 is one of the most significant events in world history, setting in motion a chain of events that would shape the modern world. Columbus's journey across the Atlantic to the islands of the Caribbean marked the beginning of an era of exploration, colonization, and cultural exchange that would transform the globe. Early life and background. Christopher Columbus was born in 1451 in the Republic of Genoa, now part of modern-day Italy. His early life was marked by a fascination with the sea and a desire for adventure. Coming from a family of wool weavers, Columbus received limited formal education but was deeply interested in geography and navigation. He worked as a sailor and trader, gaining valuable experience in the Mediterranean and along the coast of Africa. In the late 15th century, European nations were eager to find new trade routes to Asia. The overland routes were long and dangerous, and the Portuguese had already begun exploring the possibility of reaching Asia by sailing around Africa. Columbus, however, had a different idea. He believed that by sailing westward across the Atlantic Ocean, he could reach Asia more directly. The proposal and sponsorship. Columbus spent years trying to garner support for his westward voyage. He presented his plan to the courts of Portugal, England, and France, but was repeatedly turned down. Finally, in 1492, he received backing from King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain. The Spanish monarchs, motivated by the potential for wealth and the spread of Christianity, agreed to sponsor Columbus's expedition. Columbus was granted 3 ships for his journey: the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. He was also promised a portion of any wealth he discovered and the title of Admiral of the Ocean Sea. The historic voyage. On August 3, 1492, Columbus set sail from the port of Palos de la Frontera in Spain. After a stop in the Canary Islands for repairs and supplies, his fleet ventured into the unknown Atlantic. The voyage was fraught with uncertainty and danger. The crew grew restless and fearful as weeks passed without sight of land. However, Columbus remained steadfast in his belief that they would reach their destination. On October 12, 1492, land was finally sighted. Columbus and his crew had reached an island in the Bahamas, which he named San Salvador. Believing he had reached the outskirts of Asia, he referred to the inhabitants as Indians. Columbus continued his exploration, visiting other islands in the Caribbean, including Cuba and Hispaniola. He established a settlement on Hispaniola and left a contingent of men to explore further. Impact and legacy. Columbus's return to Spain in March 1493 was met with great acclaim. He was celebrated as a hero and quickly organized a second voyage. Over the next decade, he made 3 more voyages to the New World, exploring parts of the Caribbean and the coast of Central and South America. However, his later expeditions were less successful, marked by difficulties and conflicts with both indigenous peoples and Spanish colonists. Despite these challenges, Columbus's voyages had a profound and lasting impact. They opened the door to further exploration and colonization by European powers. The discovery of the New World brought immense wealth to Spain and other European nations, fueling the growth of empires and the expansion of trade. The exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures between the Old and New Worlds, known as the Columbian Exchange, transformed societies on both sides of the Atlantic. Controversy and criticism. While Columbus is often celebrated for his achievements, his legacy is also a subject of controversy and criticism. The arrival of Europeans in the Americas led to the exploitation and suffering of indigenous peoples. Columbus's treatment of native populations, including enslavement and violence, has been widely condemned. His voyages marked the beginning of a period of colonization that had devastating consequences for indigenous cultures and populations. Modern historians and scholars continue to debate Columbus's legacy. Some view him as a pioneering explorer who changed the course of history, while others see him as a symbol of imperialism and colonial oppression. The complex and multifaceted nature of his legacy reflects the broader history of European colonization and its impact on the world. Columbus Day and its reassessment. In the United States, Columbus Day is celebrated annually on the second Monday in October to commemorate Columbus's landing in the New World. The holiday has been observed since the 19th century and became a federal holiday in 1937. However, in recent years, there has been a growing movement to reassess the celebration of Columbus Day in light of the negative impact of his voyages on indigenous peoples. Many cities and states have chosen to replace Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day, a holiday that honors the history and cultures of Native American communities. This shift reflects a broader effort to recognize and address the historical injustices faced by indigenous populations and to celebrate their contributions and resilience. Conclusion. Christopher Columbus's historic voyage in 1492 was a pivotal moment in world history. His journey across the Atlantic opened the door to European exploration and colonization of the Americas, setting in motion a series of events that would shape the modern world. While Columbus is often celebrated as a pioneering explorer, his legacy is also marked by controversy and criticism due to the impact of European colonization on indigenous peoples. Columbus's story is a reminder of the complexities of history and the importance of understanding multiple perspectives. As we continue to explore and interpret the past, it is crucial to recognize the contributions and experiences of all peoples and to strive for a more inclusive and nuanced understanding of our shared history. Vasco da Gama, a notable Portuguese explorer, is celebrated for his successful voyage to India in 1498. This journey was pivotal as it established a direct sea route from Europe to India, bypassing the arduous and often perilous land routes controlled by Muslim traders. Da Gama's achievement had profound implications for global trade, heralding a new era of European exploration, maritime dominance, and colonialism. His voyages not only marked a significant milestone in the Age of Discovery, but also reshaped the geopolitical and economic landscapes of the time. Early life and background. Vasco da Gama was born around 1460 in Sines, a coastal town in Portugal. He was the third son of Estevão da Gama, a knight in the household of the Duke of Viço, and Isabel Soter, of English descent. Growing up in a maritime environment, da Gama was exposed to the seafaring culture of Portugal from an early age. His father's position and connections within the Portuguese nobility provided him with opportunities to receive an education that included navigation and astronomy. Portugal, during the 15th century, was at the forefront of European exploration. Under the guidance of Prince Henry the Navigator, Portuguese explorers had already made significant advances along the West African coast, seeking new trade routes and opportunities. The Portuguese crown was eager to find a direct sea route to the lucrative markets of India and the Far East, thus avoiding the costly and dangerous overland routes dominated by Muslim traders. The quest for a sea route to India. The quest for a sea route to India was driven by several factors. First and foremost was the economic incentive. India and the Far East were sources of highly valued commodities such as spices, silk, and precious stones. The spice trade, in particular, was incredibly lucrative, with spices like pepper, cinnamon, and cloves fetching high prices in European markets. Controlling the spice trade would not only bring immense wealth, but also reduce Europe's dependence on the Muslim-controlled overland trade routes. Additionally, there were religious and political motivations. The Reconquista, the Christian reconquest of the Iberian Peninsula from the Moors, had been completed in 1492. Portugal, a staunchly Catholic nation, was eager to expand its influence and spread Christianity. Finding a sea route to India was seen as an opportunity to establish Christian alliances and potentially challenge the Muslim dominance in the region. Preparations for the voyage. In 1497, King Manuel I of Portugal appointed Vasco da Gama to lead an expedition to find a sea route to India. This decision was influenced by da Gama's maritime background and his father's previous involvement in exploratory missions. The fleet consisted of 4 ships: the São Gabriel, the São Rafael, the Berrio, and a supply ship. The São Gabriel, da Gama's flagship, was a sturdy and well-equipped vessel designed for long ocean voyages. The expedition set sail from Lisbon on July 8, 1497. The fleet first headed south along the coast of Africa, following the route pioneered by previous Portuguese explorers. They made stops at various points along the West African coast to resupply and make repairs. Da Gama's fleet rounded the Cape of Good Hope on November 22, 1497, marking a significant milestone in the journey. This southern tip of Africa had been a formidable barrier to earlier explorers, but da Gama's fleet successfully navigated the treacherous waters and continued their journey northward along the eastern coast of Africa. The historic arrival in India. After several months of navigating the East African coast and making contact with local rulers and traders, da Gama's fleet reached the Malabar coast of India. On May 20, 1498, they anchored off the port of Calicut, present-day Kozhikode, a major trading center on the southwestern coast of India. This historic moment marked the first time a European fleet had reached India by sea, establishing a direct maritime link between Europe and the Indian subcontinent. Da Gama was received by the Zamarin, the Hindu ruler of Calicut. The initial interactions were marked by curiosity and mutual interest, but also by cultural misunderstandings and tensions. Da Gama presented the Zamarin with gifts, which were deemed unimpressive by the local standards. Despite these challenges, the Portuguese managed to establish a foothold in the Indian trade network. Implications for global trade. The establishment of a sea route to India by Vasco da Gama had far-reaching implications for global trade. It marked the beginning of a new era of European maritime exploration and expansion, leading to the establishment of trade routes that would dominate global commerce for centuries. The Portuguese quickly capitalized on da Gama's achievement by sending subsequent expeditions to India, establishing trading posts and securing strategic coastal positions. One of the most significant impacts was the shift in the balance of trade. The direct sea route allowed Portugal to bypass the overland routes controlled by Muslim traders, thereby reducing the cost and increasing the profitability of the spice trade. Portuguese control of the spice trade led to immense wealth and power, transforming Portugal into a major maritime and colonial power. The opening of the sea route also had profound implications for the Indian Ocean trade network. The arrival of the Portuguese disrupted the existing trade dynamics and introduced European naval power into the region. The Portuguese used their military superiority to establish a monopoly over the spice trade, often resorting to force and intimidation to achieve their goals. This shift in power had lasting effects on the economies and societies of the Indian Ocean littoral. Challenges and conflicts. Vasco da Gama's voyages were not without challenges and conflicts. The initial interactions with the local rulers and traders were often marked by cultural misunderstandings and differing expectations. The Portuguese approach to trade, which included the use of force and coercion, led to tensions and hostilities with the established traders and rulers of the Indian Ocean. During his second voyage to India in 1502, da Gama adopted a more aggressive stance. He attacked and looted Arab and Indian ships, demanding tribute and establishing Portuguese dominance in the region. These actions earned him a reputation for brutality and ruthlessness. The Portuguese used their naval power to enforce a monopoly on the spice trade, disrupting the traditional trade routes and practices. Legacy and impact. Vasco da Gama's voyages had a lasting legacy and impact on global history. His successful navigation of the sea route to India opened up new possibilities for European exploration and expansion. The Portuguese Empire, fueled by the wealth generated from the spice trade, became a dominant maritime power with a vast network of colonies and trading posts stretching from Africa to Asia. Da Gama's voyages also marked the beginning of the European colonial presence in India. The Portuguese established a colonial foothold in Goa, which became the center of their Indian operations. This colonial presence had profound and lasting effects on the political, economic, and cultural landscape of India. Furthermore, Da Gama's voyages contributed to the broader Age of Discovery, inspiring other European powers to seek new trade routes and territories. The Spanish, Dutch, English, and French followed in the footsteps of the Portuguese, leading to a period of intense exploration, colonization, and competition for global dominance. Conclusion: Vasco da Gama's successful voyage to India in 1498 was a watershed moment in world history. By establishing a direct sea route from Europe to India, he bypassed the formidable land routes controlled by Muslim traders and opened up new opportunities for global trade and exploration. Da Gama's achievements had profound implications for the economic, political, and cultural landscapes of the time, transforming Portugal into a major maritime power and reshaping the dynamics of the Indian Ocean trade network. While Da Gama is celebrated as a pioneering explorer, his legacy is also marked by controversy and conflict. The aggressive and often brutal tactics used by the Portuguese to establish their dominance in the Indian Ocean trade network led to tensions and hostilities with local rulers and traders. Despite these challenges, Da Gama's voyages remain a testament to the spirit of exploration and the quest for new frontiers that define the Age of Discovery. Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese explorer who sailed under the Spanish flag, is renowned for leading the first expedition to circumnavigate the globe. His journey, which began in 1519 and concluded in 1522, stands as one of the most remarkable achievements in the Age of Exploration. Although Magellan himself did not survive the entire journey, his expedition demonstrated the vastness of the world and laid the foundation for future global interconnectedness. This historic voyage significantly expanded European geographical knowledge and had profound implications for global trade, politics, and culture. Early life and background. Ferdinand Magellan was born around 1480 in Sabrosa, in the northern part of Portugal. He came from a family of minor Portuguese nobility, which afforded him opportunities for education and advancement. From a young age, Magellan was drawn to the sea and the burgeoning world of exploration that characterized Portugal in the late 15th and early 16th centuries. Magellan's early career was marked by service in the Portuguese Navy. He participated in several expeditions to India and the Malay Peninsula, gaining valuable experience in navigation and maritime warfare. During this time, he became well-versed in the challenges and opportunities of sea travel and developed a keen interest in finding new routes to the Spice Islands, known today as the Maluku Islands in Indonesia. These islands were highly coveted by European powers for their valuable spices, including cloves and nutmeg. The quest for a western route to the Spice Islands. By the early 16th century, the race for control over the lucrative spice trade was intensifying. Portugal had already established a sea route to the east by sailing around the southern tip of Africa, the Cape of Good Hope. Magellan, however, envisioned a westward route that would circumvent the Portuguese-controlled waters and reach the Spice Islands by sailing westward from Europe. Magellan's proposal to find a westward route was initially met with resistance in Portugal. King Manuel I of Portugal, who was already benefiting from the established eastern route, saw little value in Magellan's plan and refused to support it. Undeterred, Magellan turned to Spain, where he found a more receptive audience in King Charles I, later known as Emperor Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire. Preparations for the voyage. In 1518, King Charles I agreed to sponsor Magellan's expedition. The Spanish crown saw the potential to challenge Portuguese dominance in the spice trade and expand its own empire. Magellan was provided with 5 ships for the journey: the Trinidad, the San Antonio, the Concepcion, the Victoria, and the Santiago. The fleet, known as the Armada de Molucca, was equipped with provisions, maps, and a crew of approximately 270 men from various European nations. On September 20th, 1519, Magellan's fleet set sail from Seville, Spain, beginning a voyage that would become one of the most extraordinary in maritime history. The expedition first headed southwest towards the coast of South America, seeking a passage through the continent that would allow them to continue westward. The passage through South America. After months of challenging navigation along the South American coast, Magellan's fleet reached the eastern entrance of what is now known as the Strait of Magellan in October 1520. This narrow, treacherous passage, located at the southern tip of the continent, proved to be the key to continuing their westward journey. The strait, which was unknown to Europeans at the time, took the fleet several weeks to navigate due to its complex and hazardous channels. Emerging from the strait into the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, Magellan named the calm waters Mar Pacifico, or Peaceful Sea. The fleet then embarked on the longest and most arduous leg of their journey, crossing the Pacific Ocean. The lack of accurate maps and knowledge about the size of the ocean meant that the voyage was fraught with uncertainty and danger. The Pacific Crossing. The Pacific Crossing tested the endurance and resilience of Magellan and his crew. They faced severe hardships, including scurvy, starvation, and extreme weather conditions. The vastness of the ocean and the scarcity of islands for resupply made the journey particularly harrowing. After 3 months and 20 days, the fleet finally sighted the island of Guam in March 1521, providing much-needed relief and provisions for the exhausted crew. Continuing westward, Magellan's fleet reached the Philippines in March 1521. Here, Magellan established contact with local rulers and converted some to Christianity, strengthening Spain's influence in the region. However, his efforts to expand Spanish control and his involvement in local conflicts ultimately led to his demise. The death of Magellan. On April 27, 1521, Magellan was killed in the Battle of Mactan, a conflict with indigenous warriors led by the local chieftain Lapu-Lapu. Magellan's death was a significant blow to the expedition, but his crew, under the leadership of Juan Sebastián Elcano, continued the journey. Despite the loss of their leader, the expedition remained determined to complete the mission and return to Spain. The return to Spain. After Magellan's death, the remaining ships faced numerous challenges, including mutinies, navigational difficulties, and conflicts with local populations. The fleet, reduced to the Trinidad and the Victoria, eventually reached the Spice Islands, securing a cargo of valuable spices. However, only the Victoria, commanded by Elcano, managed to navigate the treacherous return journey across the Indian Ocean, around the Cape of Good Hope, and back to Spain. On September 6, 1522, the Victoria arrived in Seville, completing the first circumnavigation of the globe. Of the original 270 crew members, only 18 survived the 3-year voyage. The expedition had covered more than 42,000 miles, proving conclusively that the world was round and that the oceans were interconnected. Implications and legacy. The successful circumnavigation of the globe had profound implications for global exploration, trade, and geopolitical dynamics. It demonstrated the vastness of the world and the potential for interconnectedness, fundamentally altering European understanding of geography. The voyage confirmed that the Earth was a sphere and provided valuable information about the size and scope of the world's oceans. Magellan's expedition also had significant economic and political repercussions. The direct sea route to the Spice Islands bypassed the traditional overland routes and the Portuguese-controlled eastern maritime routes, challenging Portuguese dominance in the spice trade. Spain's newfound access to the Spice Islands bolstered its economic power and influence, contributing to the expansion of the Spanish Empire. The circumnavigation also paved the way for future explorations and expeditions. The knowledge gained from Magellan's voyage inspired other European powers to seek new trade routes and territories, leading to an era of intense exploration, colonization, and competition for global dominance. The Age of Discovery, characterized by voyages such as Magellan's, fundamentally reshaped the world and laid the foundation for the modern era of global interconnectedness. Controversies and criticisms. While Magellan is celebrated as a pioneering explorer, his legacy is not without controversy. The methods employed by Magellan and his crew, including the use of force and coercion, have been criticized for their impact on indigenous populations. The arrival of European explorers often brought disruption, violence, and disease to the societies they encountered, leading to significant suffering and loss. Magellan's interactions with indigenous peoples, particularly in the Philippines, were marked by attempts to convert local populations to Christianity and establish Spanish control. These actions, while driven by the objectives of the Spanish crown, had lasting consequences for the cultures and societies of the regions involved. Conclusion. Ferdinand Magellan's expedition to circumnavigate the globe stands as one of the most remarkable achievements in the history of exploration. Despite not surviving the entire journey, Magellan's vision, leadership, and determination paved the way for the successful completion of the first circumnavigation. The voyage demonstrated the vastness of the world, confirmed the Earth's roundness, and highlighted the potential for global interconnectedness. Magellan's legacy is a complex one, encompassing both the triumphs of exploration and the controversies of colonialism. His expedition had profound implications for global trade, politics, and culture, reshaping European understanding of geography and inspiring future explorations. The journey of Magellan and his crew remains a testament to the enduring human spirit of curiosity, adventure, and the quest for new horizons.